Let's now take you to SABC News reporter Patricia, who is at a church in Fairland for us in Johannesburg, just to give us the latest ahead of the announcement this evening. Patricia, a very good afternoon to you. It's an exciting time, Patricia, but also an anxious one for many matriculants who wrote the paper 2024. Just talk us through where exactly you are and what's happening there.
Well, good afternoon, Unati, and to our viewers. Definitely a lot of anxiety, you can imagine. This is the moment that many matriculants have been waiting for, spending their festive season, wondering how exactly they performed in the matric exams. Of course, their last exam, that concluding their schooling years and perhaps paving the way to the future. What exactly will come next? Will they be going to university? Are there jobs for them? So there's a lot of questions that come with these results. And then, the fact that the matric results were also subjected to legal scrutiny last week in terms of how exactly these results would be released. That obviously added perhaps to the uncertainty and the anxiety that the matriculants have been going through. So a few hours left, and there will be certainty, there will be clarity in terms of how exactly did they perform. A large number, we're talking about over 1 million matriculants who sat for this exam, of course, and those who sat for the National Senior Certificate, that is about 800,000, over 800,000 of them alone, and the collective being over 1 million. So it's really a large group of people that are waiting, and it's not really just about them. It's about the educators. It's about their parents. This is actually a South African story that is playing out annually, where we all sit and watch exactly how those numbers look like. What is the percentage? Is it better than the previous year? Are we going forward? And also, what are the misses? What are the mistakes that were made? What are some of the challenges that were faced? And I'm now joined by an expert, and that is Professor Mary Metcalfe. It's an exciting time, but there's also a lot of anxiety where we're wondering what is happening. And already we've had thumbs up from Umalusi this morning that says, they're giving it the green light, the results or the exams went well. But now we're waiting for this moment. Let's talk about, from your point of view, having assessed what happened throughout the exams. What were your assessments?
Well, first of all, I think we need to make a differentiation between what's happening today and what's happening tomorrow. So today it's about the system as a whole. How did the system perform? Tomorrow is the day where the individuals who are part of that system then understand where they fit. If we look at the class of 2023, the first thing we know is that they had a good year in terms of no disruptions. COVID is a long way behind them. We still don't know what was the impact of COVID in terms of their performance in grade 8 and 9. But they had a good year. We know from Umalusi that the results have been certified, accredited in terms of the integrity of the results. So what that means for the matriculants and for the system as a whole is whatever marks a student gets this year is comparable to the marks that students get in different years. So if you don't go to university this year, your matric has the same value as it will have in the future because it's standardized by Umalusi. So the system has worked. The matrics, the NSC has been written by different examining bodies. Today it's the DBE as the largest examining body that's going to report on the systemic performance.
Already we've heard some concerns that have come out. It seems like the cheating element continues, Mpumalanga and KZN having, delivered the highest numbers of culprits who may have participated in this wrongdoing. But what does that tell us? Why do we continuously see these practices despite the warnings and the appeals for matriculants not to go that route?
Everywhere in the world, you'll find that there is cheating. There's ways of trying to make sure that you get a better mark than you deserve. What the process of marking reveals, and that's where Umalusi plays a role, is it can identify some cases of cheating, particularly when it's group copying. Because if a marker sees that 5 learners are all saying exactly the same thing, word for word, you have to have questions. So firstly, we can be grateful that Umalusi and the DBE work together to identify cheating. The solution must be also at the school level. And there need to be firmer sanctions against any teacher or any principal who are not acting against copying, cheating, smuggling of crib notes, and not being vigilant to identify it. Why learners do it in South Africa and anywhere else is because this is what they call a high-stakes exam. Learners feel that their future depends so much on this 2 hours that they're writing. And perhaps it may even relieve anxiety, but it is wrong. Because assessment that takes place like this is about assessing what you know against clear criteria, and you have to stand on your own performance.
When we look at the fact that the class of 2024 started their high school journey when COVID-19 struck, and there was just all these changes, abnormalities that they had to adjust to. Teachers, the whole schooling system was ultimately disrupted, and the new norms had to be adopted. When you assess their journey, what would your findings be or your conclusions be of how hard it must have been for them?
Definitely. Also, because for this group, this cohort, they were in grade 8 and 9. That already involves an adjustment to high school. It involves adjustment to a new social milieu. And they spent a lot of their grade 8, 9, the grade 8 year, not even in school. They were completely away from school. Then they returned, and it was alternating. So that must have had an effect on learning. And it's difficult in our country because we don't really have a control group against which to measure this. What I have found interesting is that that same circumstance affected the previous 2 years of the NSC cohort. And in fact, over the last 2 years, our results have improved every year. So if there was a negative effect of being out of school for so long, which one must assume to be the case, it still meant that more learners than before were able to achieve a pass. So I'm not anticipating that this group will be negatively affected more than the previous 2 years.
The system, as you have mentioned earlier, that today is really about the system giving us a reflection of how the system performed, and perhaps giving us an indication of where we've put a foot wrong and where we're actually succeeding. Teachers, that community that really does such a marvelous job many a times. And I think often we don't give them enough credit in terms of how hard they work. I always say that's actually our real parents, the teachers. Were they prepared enough? Did they do enough in terms of, crossing this hurdle? Many of them, we've heard the story, sleepless nights, the weekends that they stood in to make sure that they helped the matriculants.
Teachers are, as you have acknowledged, and I want to give you a hug for that, are the backbone of the quality of education. And generally, I'm frustrated because they get such a negative press. The sacrifice and the commitment that teachers have made to get us through COVID, to make sure that learners succeed, is something that we should be celebrating every day, not just on National Teachers' Day. And by teachers, I also mean the principals and the educators in offices who support teachers. Your question is saying, do we do enough to support teachers? And I would say no. I would say, firstly, as a country, we need to recognize the huge contributions that the majority of teachers make and not focus on whenever a teacher does something wrong. And some of the things they do wrong are completely unacceptable. But we tend...
It's just a few.
It's just a few. Exactly. The second thing that I feel strongly about is that we need to do more to support teachers professionally with meaningful support that they value, that meets their needs. If we were able to focus the system more substantively and consistently on supporting our teachers' professional development, we would fly.
The technical briefing will be starting around 4 o'clock, and that's where the number punching will happen, where we see, where they penetrate to the ground, which province performed how, which areas, which districts, and so forth. What's your take on the technical briefing? Does it normally give us a credible picture of what's happening on the ground?
It must, and we need to have the actual report in our hands as the DG goes through the report. My constant frustration with the analysis of the Matric results, the NEC results, is there's too much focus on competition between provinces, not enough focus on the differences between provinces, and I think that unhealthy competition means that we get too much emphasis on the National Senior Certificate in the efforts of most departments, and not enough attention being given to the whole of the general education and training phase, the foundation phase from grade R to 4, the rest of primary school, grade 8 and 9. If we were able to give the same level of support that we're giving to the NSC throughout the system, we would also see an improvement over time. We would see the fruits of that attention and prioritization in future results of learners.
Thank you so much. Ultimately, better preparation throughout the school journey up to the point where they obviously write this important exam. And as we await for the technical briefing to happen or to start around 4 o'clock, and that will be followed by the big announcement, of course, by the Minister of Basic Education. Here, guests are starting to come in. There's a lot of activity that is happening as we await for these two big activities that are about to take place this afternoon and, of course, this evening. For now, we toss it back to studio.